1, 2, 3. To be creatively free, pushing forward on a dream, moving forward on a vision, being charged in the morning, filled with purpose and promise, obsessed, but in a fun way. Beyond money and fame and the hedonistic joys that can accompany those things, what we really want is to be a player in the game of life, filled to the brim with energy and inspiration, and yes, even ambition. Healthy levels, of course, but that is what we want. If you've experienced this in the past, life seldom gets better than when we are charged to the brim with a passion, working concurrently with the Holy Spirit, ideally. But what's the opposite of that? That most are actually stuck in. The opposite is a kind of living nightmare. We know our potential, but we can't get to it. We spend our days lost in procrastination and distraction, unable to really feel energized or overcome the fear, thinking of the disappointing results of the past, attempts to get going, whipping ourselves for giving up, and getting sidetracked again and again and again and again and again, and then going for cheap dopamine and addictive solutions to solve the pain of it all, which keeps us in a negative loop, rolling downhill, basically wide open to demonic forces within, telling us that we are losers in ever more creative and destructive ways, essentially burying us alive in a perpetual melees of self-contempt. And as a result, our outer world begins to reflect this harsh reality more and more, rolling down a hill of negative momentum, all the while being tortured by our divine potential, which is left untapped, knocking on the door of our soul. Hello, why aren't you doing what you should be doing again today? We know life could be more, and yet somehow we can't get out of this psychological bear trap, let's call it. Why? Well, I've been on both sides of this equation more times than I can count. I've put out 20 albums or so, something like that, and had gallery shows. I've had teams of people working for me in the past, and a machine of progression so sturdy that even when I got self-destructive within it, it would keep rolling for a time all on its own. And I've also been stuck and alone in negative loops of procrastination and clutter, unable to move forward with the very same potential at my beck and call. And so I've become somewhat of an expert at recognizing the reasons and turning them around, for better or for worse, and understanding just how sensitive our states of mind really are and how vulnerable the pursuit of our dreams are if we aren't in tip-top spiritual shape. So what does that mean, being in tip-top spiritual shape? Well, I will tell you towards the end of this, but first, here are the traps, and here are the solutions. Here are the demons, and here's how to slay them. And let's start with a little good news. Earl Nightingale says, success is the steady progression of a worthy ideal, something like that. Which means that no matter how stuck you are, success isn't far. Success isn't years away. Success is tomorrow if you want it. Hell, success is today. Success is even right now if you really want it, because success is a state of mind, but consistency is its proof. In other words, once you apply these solutions and move towards the real pursuit of your dreams, you are instantly successful. You don't need a Bugatti or a #1 album or a YouTube channel with 1 million subscribers. You just need to be charged and on fire with the pursuit of whatever it is you and your potential are going for. So how do we get there? Let's start with the pitfalls and the real solutions, which are spiritual in nature. Because we can look at motivational influencers who tell us the things we need to do, which we all already know, basically. Wake up early, get to work, stay consistent, avoid procrastination, etc. All these are obvious, and we all know what they are already, but there are forces within us disallowing us from getting there. What are those forces? #1 is anger, and its partner in crime, an inability to forgive. Anger is soul poison, anger at others, anger at ourselves, which always go hand in hand. If we don't forgive, we can't be forgiven. If we aren't forgiving others, it means we haven't forgiven ourselves. And if you want to get religious about it, God can't forgive us until we forgive others as well. If we haven't forgiven ourselves, it means we hate ourselves actively. And if we hate ourselves actively, how will we have the energy of love, which is really the main energy in pursuing our dreams? The answer is we won't. But the world will never tell us this. We live in the height of outrage culture. Break that word down. Outrage, to rage outwardly. In other words, rage towards others is practically seen as something of value in society's standards. Judgment and condemnation aren't spoken of as the ultimate sin, which is what they are, but promoted on every news organization and social media platform alike. And it's the one value that every side of whatever argument you're having has and is agreed upon: the outrage and judgment towards another. Everyone is equally guilty of falling into this trap. The left, the right, the center, you name it. They're all guilty. We're all guilty. And beyond societal arguments, our lack of forgiveness runs all the way to our childhood and our mothers and our fathers. And that's the root of it, obviously. No parent did a perfect job, and most parents failed miserably in many ways. And so we have a world full of angry children pretending to be adults. I'm one of them, but I'm not that angry anymore. Looking always for new people or situations to project our deep anger onto. Forgiveness itself is a deep rabbit hole. We could write multiple books on it and never really understand it. What does it mean to forgive? Is forgiveness a choice? Is it a spirit? Is it something we can will? Is it grace? Is it within our control, or does it need to be poured on us from the love of mercy from on high? It's difficult because being angry and defending yourself against the other, or imagining the other as bad or worthy of contempt, is very seductive. It bolsters the ego. It becomes a kind of security blanket whereby you can dismiss self-responsibility and self-accountability, which those things are difficult to own up to, and just focus on what someone else is doing and pretend you're better than them in your mind. And maybe even it's true that you would never do what they did, but that hardly matters in this equation, because our primary interest is to get ourselves unstuck, and our primary value, our richest treasure, is our attention. If you think about attention, people make billions of dollars who can focus their attention consistently in one direction. People change the world with that power. So if you scatter it at temporary people wandering through your life, you are literally casting the pearls of your attention before swine. And all these dramas turn out to be as transitory as soap operas in the scheme of things anyway. They don't really matter. God is the constant, unchanging reality. Consciousness is another word for it. And what our identity actually is, we are, the I am. But the ego pulls for its illusions to dominate, and the devil works overtime to steal our focus, to keep our resentment, to neuter you and thwart your ability to work with God as your authentic self and overcome all these distractions and create something incredible with the potential God has given us. So when we speak about procrastination, in a large part, we are talking about anger and the inability to forgive. So how do we forgive? Well, for a start, we don't indulge anger. When anger arrives, when we have negative thoughts about another or ourselves, firstly, we recognize that we live a life where we are constantly aware of our thoughts, living always as the observer of our thoughts. This takes practice. And if you've spent a lifetime as thought itself being the wall you've hung your identity on, which most of us do, it's a process and practice to get to a place where that is no longer home base. Practicing present moment awareness, being the observer of thoughts and calling them all into question. Anything that takes us out of present moment awareness is evil. Anything that brings us into the past or into the future is like trading reality for an illusion. We aim to be in reality, in presence, as much as possible. And over time, with enough practice, this becomes natural. Taking an example of my own life, I've been practicing this every day for the last 8 months or so, and anger is rare for me now. But if it ever does rise up, it's like a 3-alarm fire going off that something is way, way off, and I tend to it immediately. I don't believe in its reality. I know for sure that it isn't right, and so really it doesn't stand a chance of taking over. I practice forgiveness, mantras like Ho'oponopono, and I practice presence every day. And then the light of God within dissolves it all, the anger I mean, and I can once again put my mind towards the direction of my dreams and purpose rather than idiotic dramas that will be here today and gone tomorrow. We aren't told the reasons we procrastinate. Often we are just told not to procrastinate. Gee, thanks. Like we couldn't figure that out. Oh yeah, I know, don't procrastinate. How do I stop procrastinating? And so we never address the problem as a symptom, right? Because it's a symptom, but rather as the problem itself. All creative stumbling blocks have their roots in old and ongoing traumas. If we can become clean slates, then our infinite creative nature will express itself with ease. Almost all the other hang-ups or resistances to creatively thriving are branches from the tree that is anger, and the roots of that tree, which are the inability to forgive. Next on the list of things that get in our way is cheap dopamine, hedonistic escapism, or addiction. I mean, this would also be a symptom of anger, but it's a symptom that can turn into its own problem rather quickly, and certainly an avenue that builds internal shame, which makes forward progress towards our creative goals nearly impossible. I'm aware of the myths of the addict artist making genius works while in the grips of addiction. Keith Richards and Charles Bukowski come to mind. I've even stumbled through some albums high on more than just life, but those are definitely the exceptions and not the rule. We are here talking about starting from the ground up in 2024. It's a whole new world, baby. And in this world, the future creative bosses will not be junkies. I'm pretty sure of that. Books could be written about addiction, about forgiveness, about procrastination, about anger, and about many of the other branches on the tree of creative displacement. So keeping this focused is suddenly becoming difficult to do, but let's attempt it and end this with some basic suggestions to get started on being back on track. Let's look at anger as the primary source of destruction. Anger at others, anger at ourselves, anger in the deep past, unresolved, and its extension into the now and the future, projecting itself on anyone and everyone that walks through our lives. 2 keys to begin battling it on the field it's actually on are awareness and observation of your thoughts and mind. Anger foists itself up on the ship of your life through the power of your own imagination and the thought forms it deludes you into believing are reality. So making a daily practice of present moment awareness, mixing in prayer into those moments where you ask God to help you forgive, is a very powerful practice indeed. And you will come to much relief and even divine intervention if you can manage to practice this. Allow anger to become an alarm bell of self-reflection rather than indulgent slips into the imagination and pumping up of our own egos. And you will be ahead of most of everyone on this planet called Earth. And the other cheat code for forgiveness is the Ho'oponopono prayer. I talk about it a lot. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. You just repeat that over and over and over again. I put it on last night. There's stuff on YouTube, like 20-minute version, or no, like 10-hour versions of it where you can just like have it on really low and you sit in the atmosphere of that forgiveness. It works a magic spell. Investigating this mantra prayer, its history and power is stuff of legend. There's much about it on YouTube and various books. Chiefly, it's about taking responsibility for everything in your field of consciousness and how even the betrayals we invite into our lives hold a purpose of evolving us on our soul's journey. I love you for joining my soul's journey. I'm sorry that the betrayal I needed, I called you in to commit. Please forgive me because that now has become your karmic debt. And thank you for helping me evolve beyond where I was. Now, see, that's a great way to look at a betrayal when somebody betrays you, because it puts the onus right back on you. I realize this is a radical way to look at a situation of betrayal, but it happens to reflect reality, particularly if we do take responsibility for everything that happens in our lives. And we must, which is what we must do if we want to remain empowered and unstuck. Awareness and forgiveness and awareness as a daily practice, or as a practice you practice all day. It's a good place to start. From there, the field opens up wide, and I will talk about the nuts and bolts of morning routines, physical fitness, breath work, meditation, prayer, and sobriety. Even celibacy and semen retention can factor in, although aren't necessary to get going, so don't freak out. But if we look at the battlefield of expressing ourselves and the absolute dedication that takes, things that seem extreme to quote-unquote normal people aren't really extreme at all. There is a way to get unstuck, and it's not easy, but it is simple, and it's a lot of fun once you begin moving in that direction. Most of us won't move in that direction until the pain of being stuck is way worse than the pain it takes to get unstuck. But success is the steady progression towards a worthy ideal. Decide you are going to forgive everyone and everything, and your journey to success has begun with a bang. Thanks for watching, everybody. I just hope that you can let go of that stuff, because we are all stuck in the same ways, and the solution really, I think, is spiritual to all this. It's a battlefield of principalities, and if we can outsmart the demons that are trying to keep us angry and our focus scattered, we can get to where we need to go. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time.